Okay, so we're going to work with lesson 5. So lesson 5 is using ActionScript and components to load in content. So first what I want you to do is just open up the folder for lesson 5, and you will see inside this folder, besides the files that you're going to need to load in content, which is your lesson file and your Swain files, you also have a file with images, and inside that file there's also a thumbnail in images. And you also have a file with text. So it's always good to make a text. You can either do it as a text file or a words file. So it always makes it easier to copy and paste your text into programs like Flash and Dreamweaver. So what I'm going to do, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open the lesson file. I'm going to file and save it. I just simply save it as lesson 05. So we're going to work with a list component instance, and it's very easy in Flash, and since the versions of CX5, it makes it easy to create lists because it's already loaded inside the program. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new layer, select the text layer right here, and just above it select new layer. I'm going to write component for this. You can follow along in your book. So now I have a new layer here. Now we're going to go open up the components panel. To open up the components panel, you just have to go up to Windows and scroll down until you find it. And it's right here. Now we have to choose the component that we want. So make sure that you're in frame 1. Okay. And now we're going to scroll down, and what we're going to be looking for is we're looking for the one that's called list. So go ahead and scroll down until you find the list component. And it's right here. And I'm going to drag this onto my stage. And just hit OK. We're going to approximate it, but we're going to put the size in. So if you notice over here, the second we bring this in, you can see in the properties bar, we have some properties that are already shown. Let's give it a name. So in the property panel, we're going to name the list instance as load list. And now we're going to place in some size. So we're going to set the how it's going to fall on the screen here on the stage. So we're going to put in, as far as X, they want you to place in 30. And for Y, they want you to place in 150. And as far as the width goes, they want you to place in 140. And as far as the height goes, they want you to place in 60. So now you see that your list falls very nicely onto the side. And if you scroll down the bottom and where it says components parameter, you'll see that there's some parameters that we're going to place into our file. So what you have to do now is you have to select the data provider parameter. You just have to scroll down and find that, and it's right here, right next to it. It's like a little pencil. Now if you select that, it opens up a dialog box. And they want us to place in 3. So you just hit the plus sign 3 times. Okay. So now we're going to give them names. So the very first one we're going to name as instrument. So you have to select right here where it says label. Let's just call it instrument. And then where it says data, it's asking us to place in the instrument Swain file. Now you have to make sure that you write this in correctly, otherwise it's not going to work. So you have to make sure the Swain file, you have the exact same name for your Swain file that you place in for the data. That's very important. So the next one is going to be paint. So we're just going to call this paint. And where it says data, we're going to obviously put paint dot Swain. Now the last one is going to be gallery. And then for data, we're going to place in gallery dot Swain. Make sure we spell everything correctly, and just kind of double click. And it's even case sensitive as far as capital letters, small letters, the whole bit, because it will not find your file. All it's going to do is go out and try to find these files. Now we're just going to hit OK. Now if you look on your, there you go, you can see your list right now. So you see instrument, paint, and gallery. You might want to save. I always am very mindful about saving. At this point, you might just want to save. So now we're going to add in the UI loader component. So you want to load a Swain, JPEG, PNG, or GIF file. You can use the UI loader component. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to open up this component file. We're going to scroll down until we find the UI loader, which is right here. We're going to drag that onto our stage. You're going to make sure that we're still in the first frame of the components, okay? That's what we're going to do. We want to make sure we're still there. And we're still in the same layer, so you're just going to drag it out onto the stage. Hit OK. And then we're going to give it a name. We're going to call this one Load Window. Now we have to place in size. So for X, we're going to put in 205. For Y, we're going to place in 140. This is just where it's going to end up. And for width, we're going to make it 550. And for height, we're going to make it 400. Okay, so it fits very nicely in our file. As we can see now, we're going to save this again. So now we're going to go through and we're going to add in our action script. So we have everything all saved and ready to go. Make sure that you spelled everything correctly. Make sure that everything looks correct before you continue on. Okay, so now we're going to add a change event listener to the list component. So when the user selects an item and an instance of the list component, an event named change automatically fires. You respond to the change event with ActionScript, very similar to the way that you responded to other events and the lessons that we did previously. But before I get started here and even start doing this, I want to make sure that I have everything named correctly. I can check my instance list here and make sure that it's named load list. And then I'm going to check my my window here and make sure that it's named load window. So I can also go back and recheck this. If I select over here where it says data provided, I can select this little pencil again and just make sure that I have everything in there correctly. Make sure your Swain is written correctly, all your Swains, the instrument, paint, and gallery. And then once you think everything is okay, then you just hit OK. So now I have to go ahead and I'm going to select my actions layer. I'm going to write my action script. So you can load any file. You can load a Swain file, a JPEG, a PNG, and a GIF file using the UI loader component and with action script. So the very first thing that we have to write is we have to insert the code at the top of the action panel for the change. Now I already did this, so let me just go ahead and select it, the action layer, so you can see. So the first thing I have to write is this. I have to write load list, add event listener, event is change. So I want to change load file function, load file event. And then after that, I have to write in my target. Okay, in this case, it is written as eTarget. Let me just bring this up so you can see it. So I'm going to load the window. That is my target. I have the list. The list is the event listener, and it's going to load in the window. You have to make sure your instance are written in correctly. That's so important. And everything you do, everything is very case sensitive in Flash. So you have load window.source equals eTarget selected item data. So you make sure that you have it written correctly, and then you can just go ahead and save your movie. File save, and let's just preview this and make sure that it's working okay. So I'm going to go up to the top, I'm going to control test and test. Okay, so far so good. Now if I select my instruments, the instruments range should load in. There we go. If I select paint, then the paint should load in. Now the gallery is not going to load in because we haven't done the gallery. It's telling us that there's an error here. But everything else is working correctly. So we did what we were supposed to. And the instruments. Okay, so everything looks correct. So I'm just going to go ahead and now I'm going to create my gallery. I'm going to create the gallery file. Okay, the first thing you need to do is open up this gallery file. This has already been created for you. And you will look at this file. You will notice that it's actually made up of 3 items on the stage. So we have not placed any action yet, and we're going to do that in a minute. But you need to take a look at each one of these. If you select right here, you will notice that this is the thumbs _ MC. If you select over here and the UI loader, you will notice that it's called LDR. And then down here you will notice that there is a text layer, and this one is called info. Now I want you to just go back over for a minute and just take a look at the thumbs. This is actually a movie clip that is made up of 7 individual buttons. You can actually scroll down and find each of the 7 buttons that's going to load in the 7 movies. Okay, so these are going to be our thumbnails that are going to load in our images. You can go back to the scene just by selecting the scene up here. I'm going to go ahead and start adding event listeners to my thumbnails, and that's what I want to do. And you're going to actually create, since it's a movie clip, you're going to actually create thumbs _ MC, and each one of them is going to be a path that is going to be the button. So we have the button 1, button 2, button 3, all the way up to button 7. Okay, so let me just show you what we have here first before we get started. We have all our thumbs. We have 7 thumbs. And what we're going to do here in this file is we're going to actually create some action. We're going to do an add event listener to our thumbnails. And we've done this in our previous lessons. Now you're going to do the same for the 7 buttons in the thumb _ MC clip. You want to make sure that everything is labeled correctly. You just have to check over in your properties panel to make sure that you have this labeled exactly the way you want it before you start putting in your add event listeners. So we're going to go ahead and select the very first keyframe, and I'm going to open up the action layer so you can see it. And I've already started writing this. So for each one of my thumbs from 1 to all the way 7, I add an event listener, which is mouse event click. So I want each one of them to click and mouse event. And if you notice here, the calls for the functions are named LDR1, LDR2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 7. And after this, we're going to add one more line. We've noticed here it says 1DR source equals, and we have images, which is the folder. It's got to go out, find the folder, and image 1 is what it's looking for, image1.jpg. And below here, it's the text load. This is the text that's going to be loaded into the image. We're going to put some code down for that too. And right here, the little mark here, you can see before the text, these characters tell ActionScript to go up one level from the location of the current Flash file, and then to look in a folder named Images for a file named image1.jpg. So we are actually describing a path. So it's very important to make sure that you put all this in. Now right here, this is just basically the color, the background color we want. We can change this. We can put in black. We can put in white. Whatever we want when the text loads, this will be the background color. If you look back on the file, let me just close this up for a minute. If you look back on the file, this will be the background color that's going to load in here for our text. And let me just open up the ActionScript again. And I'm going to go back to the ActionScript layer on the very first file. And I'm going to go through now. I put all these in. You see we have 2. We have to make sure we have images, and we have 2. Picture 2. This is for the text. And the text, when the text loads in, and this is the background color for that. For each one, we can go through and check. And I put each one in. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and put in the loading text from an external file. Okay, so now we're going to load the text from the external file. From those files that you have are in the folder, we're going to load those in. So you're going to create a code to load a different text file into the info text field for each of the buttons. So the UI loader component that you have been using to load Swain and images files makes use of ActionScript called the loader. Because the UI loader component was used, you didn't need to write ActionScript to load any of the file. The component took care of the process in the background. To load text or data into Flash, you can use a class called URL loader. So that's what we're going to use and to bring in the text for the text down at the bottom here for our gallery. Because we will not be using a component to help with the loading of the text, you will write ActionScript to create an instance of the URL loader class to load the text. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to write var loader URL loader equals new URL loader. Now remember what var was. Remember that way back in the beginning where var is a keyword that tells ActionScript that you are creating a new variable. So you're going to go ahead and write this right up here, var loader URL loader equals new URL loader. So next you're going to create the text load function to load text from an external file. This is the function that the button listens to that you created earlier. Okay, so you're going to add the code here that we have here. So the text load function is called when any one of the 7 thumbnail buttons is clicked. If you review the button function, you will see when the text load function is called, 2 parameters are sent, file and color. So the file parameter is a string that describes a path to a text file, and the color parameter is a numeric color value that will be used to set the background color. Remember we had set the background color up here. So the background color is going to be different every single time you click the button and the image loads and the text loads. The background color will be different behind each one of them. Now you may not want this. You may want your color to be black or white. This is really totally up to you when you're working on your file. So when the text load function is called, it loads the text file into Flash and changes the color. So it changes the color that you place in here of the text field. But the text will not yet be displayed. To display the text, you need to set the data that has been loaded so that it is the text property of the text field. So you have to write this. So below the existing code, you have to write the following line. Loader add event lister. So you have to put another add event lister in. Event complete display text. So that's how you get your text to be displayed. And below that, you got to write the function. So the function is display text, and the event is info text loader data. So this will complete your pretty much complete your file. So let's go ahead and see how this looks so far. So I'm just going to go and I'm going to test my movie and see how this looks. Okay, so you notice it says here to click the button and for each of the pictures. And as you can see, the color changes down the bottom as well as the images. I don't think there's much contrast here. I'm having a hard time trying to figure out which buttons is which. I think I would have done this a little bit differently if I was creating this myself. So we're going to save this file and save. So pretty much all done. Just about the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add a scrolling bar. If you want to add a scrolling bar for the text field. So the text field that you will be loading contains more text than is visible, so you can't really see all the text on stage. So what you need to do is use a built-in component called a UI scroll bar that lets you easily create a working scroll bar for the field. So you just select next to the text, which is right down here. Okay, make sure you have that selected. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to check where it says text, and then you have to go up where it says text menu. Just go up to the top and find text and the text menu and select scroll about. Okay, so now we need to drag the open up the components here that we had before, and all the way down here it says UI scroll bar. We need to drag that to where we want it. Now you can use the snapping settings. I find that they don't always work that well. So I'm just going to kind of drag it out and place it where I think it should be, which should be about right here. And I'm going to actually move this up not like that. So somehow my file got off a little bit. Just kind of move it up. Okay. Place my scroller where I want it. Alright. So I like what I have there. Now we have to give it a name. We're going to go scroll bar. We're going to make sure that it says down here the direction is vertical and the scroll target name is info. So let's go ahead and see how this looks. You can save this. Alright. So now we can see our scroll bar. So we just go to each one. There you go. Pretty easy to do. Not too difficult. Okay, so that pretty much ends this tutorial. And I hope this helped you with your working on your projects this week. Okay, but you know what, before I go out here, maybe we'd like to see how this whole movie looks. Let's go back and let me just find my file. Let's see if I can find the file. I think this is the one that I was working on. I've got quite a few here. Let's see if this is it. Nope, that's the wrong file. Actually, let's just do the complete file. take a look and see how theirs came out. I can't find the file right now. Alright, let's just see how this looks with the gallery in it. There we go. So we have a pretty cool file here with all these different images, the instruments, and the paint. Okay, so this ends this tutorial.